In a quiet Idaho town, a mystery lay buried for 12 long years, hidden beneath the soil, waiting for the right moment to speak. It began with the disappearance of a 10-year-old girl named Emily Carter, a name that haunted every street, every parent, every unanswered question. Her bicycle was found, her footprints vanished, and time moved on until one day at a dusty construction site, the earth finally gave up its secret. What the police unearthed that evening wasn't just a metal box. It was the beginning of a nightmare that would unravel a truth darker than anyone could imagine. This is the story of a case that shattered a city's innocence, and the detective who refused to let Emily Carter be forgotten. Evening was falling over Boise when the Idaho State Police arrived at the quiet construction site. The air was cool, heavy with the smell of fresh dirt and diesel from the machines that had stopped working hours earlier. Workers stood off to the side, whispering among themselves, their faces pale and uneasy. Something had been found in the ground, something no one expected to see again. Detective Mark Sullivan stepped out of his car, his boots crunching on gravel. He had seen hundreds of crime scenes in his 20-year career, but this one felt different. As he walked closer, floodlights from police trucks lit up the digging area, turning the pit into a harsh circle of white. In the center of that circle sat a half-buried metal container, dull, rusted, and strangely heavy. It looked ordinary at first glance, but everyone around it could feel the weight of its story. An officer explained that a construction crew had been digging for new pipes when the excavator's blade hit something solid. They thought it was a rock at first. Then they saw metal. When they cleared away the dirt, they realized it was a box, sealed tight, with a rusted lock still attached. That was when they called the police. Detective Sullivan crouched beside the container, brushing away the soil with gloved hands. The box was about 2 feet long, 18 inches wide, the kind of thing used to store tools or documents. But it didn't belong there, buried several feet underground. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. Sometimes in this line of work, your instincts speak before the evidence does. This wasn't just trash someone had buried. It was deliberate. Someone wanted whatever was inside to stay hidden forever. A forensic officer marked the area and began taking photographs. Every movement was slow and careful. No one dared to rush. They all understood what might be at stake. The silence grew heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the generator powering the lights. The sun had disappeared completely now, and the only glow came from the lamps and the flash of cameras. As the team prepared to lift the box from the ground, Sullivan's mind went somewhere else, to a case that had haunted him for more than a decade. A little girl named Emily Carter, 10 years old, full of life, who vanished one warm July afternoon 12 years ago. He remembered her parents standing outside their home holding her photograph, begging anyone with information to come forward. He remembered the volunteers who searched parks, rivers, and neighborhoods for weeks. They found her bicycle lying near Maple Street, the training wheels still attached, the seat a little crooked, but no sign of Emily. No footprints, no struggle, nothing. It was as if the earth had swallowed her whole. The investigation dragged on for years. Tips came and went, leads turned cold. People moved on with their lives, but Detective Sullivan never could. Every year on the anniversary of her disappearance, he revisited the case files, hoping something new might appear, something he'd missed. But time only deepened the mystery. And now, standing in the glare of the construction lights, watching that sealed metal box being lifted out of the dirt, Sullivan felt a rush of emotions he couldn't name. Fear, hope, dread, and exhaustion. Could this finally be the break he had been waiting for? Or was it another dead end that would reopen old wounds? The container was heavier than expected. 2 officers carried it carefully toward the evidence van. The metallic thud as it touched the truck's floor echoed through the still air. Sullivan's eyes followed it the entire way, his heart beating faster with every step. He knew that once they opened it, nothing would be the same. Not for him, not for Emily's family, not for the city that had spent 12 years wondering what happened to the little girl with the bright smile. For a moment, Sullivan closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Please, let her finally come home." No one spoke as the vehicle doors shut. The night swallowed the sound of the departing engine. The ground that had hidden its secret for 12 long years now lay exposed, silent and empty again. But every officer there knew this was only the beginning. What waited inside that box could bring peace, or it could bring pain beyond imagination. Either way, the truth was finally coming out of the earth, and Detective Sullivan was ready to face whatever it revealed. The metal container was transported to the Idaho State Police Forensic Laboratory the next morning. It sat on a steel examination table under bright white lights, silent, cold, and unassuming. Yet everyone in the room could feel it. There was something inside, something heavy, something waiting. Detective Mark Sullivan stood behind the glass wall of the observation room, hands in his pockets, his heart beating slow but hard. He had waited 12 years for something like this, anything that could bring him closer to Emily Carter's truth. Now that it was finally here, a part of him wished it wasn't. Dr. Patricia Hoffman, the senior forensic examiner, was known for her calm professionalism. She had worked on hundreds of cases, murders, disappearances, cold cases, but even she could sense that this box was different. Before she began, she paused for a long moment, staring at it as if listening to the silence it carried. The container had been carefully cleaned on the outside, labeled and documented. A small rusted padlock still clung to its latch, corroded but intact. Dr. Hoffman's assistant held a pair of bolt cutters. With one sharp squeeze, the lock snapped apart. The echo of breaking metal filled the room, short, harsh, final. For a second, no one moved. Then Dr. Hoffman slowly lifted the lid. A faint musty smell escaped, the scent of soil, metal, and time. Inside were several layers of thick plastic, sealed tight with duct tape. The wrapping looked deliberate, almost obsessive. Someone had taken great care to protect what lay within. Hoffman began cutting through the layers, documenting every movement. Each piece of plastic she peeled away revealed another, tighter, cleaner, more precise. Whoever had done this had known exactly what they were doing. Finally, the last layer came off. Inside, wrapped neatly and separated by sheets of paper, were photographs, dozens of them. Old Polaroids, the kind that developed instantly, used long before smartphones or digital cameras. 43 in total, each one preserved carefully, as if the person who took them wanted them to last forever. Dr. Hoffman picked up the first photograph with gloved hands. The moment her eyes focused, her breath caught, her professional calm broke for just a second. She looked down at the image again, unable to believe what she was seeing. It was Emily Carter, the same little girl whose face had appeared on missing posters 12 years ago, the same smile the whole city had once searched for. But this time there was no smile. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear. Dr. Hoffman placed the photo down slowly, then reached for the next one, and the next. Each photograph showed Emily again, frightened, crying, confused, in what appeared to be the same dimly lit room. The pictures were arranged in order, like chapters of a nightmare. At first she looked unharmed, then bruised, then weaker. By the last photograph, the light had gone out of her eyes. Detective Sullivan's knees felt weak as he watched from the other side of the glass. He couldn't hear what was being said, but he saw the look on Hoffman's face, the look of someone who had just seen the truth and wished she hadn't. He turned away, pressing a hand against his forehead. 12 years of searching, hundreds of interviews, countless false leads, and this was how it ended. Not with a rescue, but with proof that Emily had suffered more than anyone had imagined. Dr. Hoffman's voice came through the intercom, quiet but steady. These photographs were taken over several days. Same location, same victim. Her assistant began numbering the photos one by one. 43 images of horror, each one carefully planned, each one telling a part of Emily's final days. Whoever had done this wasn't acting in rage. This was someone who wanted to record everything, to remember it, to relive it. Detective Sullivan clenched his fists. He had promised Emily's mother that he would never give up, that one day he'd bring her daughter home. Now he had proof of what happened, but not peace. The truth hurt more than the years of not knowing. As the final photo was placed into an evidence bag, the room fell silent again. The container was empty, its secrets finally revealed. Dr. Hoffman looked through the glass toward Sullivan. Their eyes met for a long moment. Neither of them spoke, but both knew the same thing. This was only the beginning. The box had been opened. The horror had finally come to light. And somewhere out there, the person who did this had been living free for 12 long years. Detective Mark Sullivan sat alone in the cold case office late that night. The photographs from the metal container were spread across the long wooden table before him, each one placed inside a clear plastic sleeve. 43 moments frozen in time, 43 silent screams. He stared at them for hours, afraid to blink, afraid to miss something. He had looked at hundreds of crime scene pictures before, but these were different. These were personal. They were alive with emotion, pain, and hidden meaning. Every photograph told a small part of a much bigger story. Emily Carter was in all of them, sometimes sitting on the floor, sometimes lying on an old mattress, sometimes just staring straight into the camera. At first it looked like random cruelty, but Sullivan knew better. Criminals always leave something behind. Clues, mistakes, patterns. So he began to look deeper. In the corner of one picture, he noticed the reflection of a lamp in a mirror, a strange shape almost like a school maintenance light. In another photo behind Emily, he saw a wooden shelf with cleaning supplies and a label that read Roosevelt District Storage. His heart started to race. Roosevelt District, that was the area where Emily went to school. He leaned closer. The same kind of shelf appeared in at least 3 other photos. Then came another detail, a wall calendar. Though blurred, the month was still visible. March 2013. It was the same month Emily disappeared. Sullivan's eyes burned as he scanned every inch of the images. He noticed a box of paint thinner, a cracked tile, a small ventilation fan, all ordinary things, but together they told a story. This wasn't some hidden cabin or remote basement. This was a place people used every day. He called Dr. Patricia Hoffman the next morning. "Patricia," he said quietly, "these photos, I think they were taken somewhere close, somewhere public." They met again in the lab, studying the photographs under magnification. Hoffman's team enhanced the images using digital software. What appeared invisible before now came into focus. Reflections in metal surfaces, small text on papers pinned to the wall, the pattern of bricks behind Emily's head. Then they saw it. On the edge of one photograph, half hidden behind Emily, was part of a utility bill taped to the wall. The address wasn't fully visible, but enough letters could be read. Sevald Elliman, E. Hoffman looked at Sullivan in shock. "It's at a school," she whispered. These photos were taken in a school. Sullivan's chest tightened. A wave of anger, disbelief, and sorrow rushed through him. How could something this evil happen in a place meant to keep children safe? They compared the architectural details in the photos with old records of Roosevelt Elementary School. Every small thing matched. The pattern of the tiles, the kind of vent used in the maintenance room, even the model of the fluorescent light. It all fit. For 12 years, the truth had been sitting right there, hidden behind the walls of a place full of laughter and innocence. The killer hadn't worked far away or hidden in the shadows. He had walked those hallways every single day. Dr. Hoffman sat back, her voice barely a whisper. "He didn't just want to hurt her," she said. "He wanted to keep her close like a trophy." Detective Sullivan stared at the photos again. The face behind the camera was still unknown, but now they had direction, a place to start. He opened the old employment files of the school district. Hundreds of names. Janitors, electricians, substitute teachers. His eyes landed on one name that had appeared more than once in past reports. Thomas Weber, the school's maintenance worker. Weber had been interviewed briefly 12 years ago and dismissed as a harmless, quiet man. But quiet didn't mean innocent. Sullivan's instincts screamed that this was him. He leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, "You've hidden for 12 years, Thomas. But not anymore." Outside, dawn began to rise over Boise. The city was waking up, unaware that the truth, long buried, was finally coming to the surface. Detective Mark Sullivan had seen the worst of humanity in his career, but nothing prepared him for this moment. The clues all pointed in one direction. Thomas Weber, the quiet custodian who swept the halls of Roosevelt Elementary for nearly 20 years. He was known as polite, dependable, and calm. Parents trusted him. Teachers greeted him kindly every morning. He smiled often but spoke little, and that silence had hidden something dark, something too monstrous for anyone to imagine. The search warrant was signed just after sunrise. A small team of officers drove to Weber's home, a modest single-story house on the edge of town. The neighborhood was quiet, filled with trimmed lawns and friendly faces. No one there could have guessed that the man living at number 47 carried 12 years of horror beneath his floorboards. When Weber opened the door, he looked confused but calm. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice steady. Sullivan didn't answer. He simply handed him the warrant. The officers moved inside. The house was clean, almost unnaturally clean. Everything was in order. Pictures on the wall, books on the shelves, a faint smell of disinfectant in the air. Nothing looked out of place, but Sullivan's instincts screamed otherwise. Evil rarely looked messy. In the hallway, an officer found a door leading down to the basement. It was locked from the outside. Unusual, suspicious. Weber froze. His face went pale. That one small reaction was all Sullivan needed. "Open it," Sullivan said. Weber hesitated. "It's just storage," he mumbled, but his hands were shaking. Another officer forced the lock. The door creaked open and a rush of cold, stale air met them. They descended slowly. The light flickered as they reached the bottom. Then came the smell, faint at first, then stronger, a mix of dust, mold, and something far worse. The basement was divided into two parts. One half looked normal, shelves of tools, cleaning supplies, and old furniture, but the other half was something else. Hidden behind a false wall, they found a narrow door leading to a smaller room. Inside that room, time had stopped. The walls were painted a dull gray. The single window had been sealed shut with boards. In the center of the room was an old mattress on the floor, its fabric torn and stained. A small table stood beside it with a broken camera resting on top, the same camera that had taken the 43 photographs. Detective Sullivan felt his throat tighten. He had imagined this place 100 times, where Emily had spent her final days, but the reality was worse. It wasn't a dungeon or a secret cabin in the woods. It was an ordinary basement in an ordinary house. Evil had lived quietly, right among them. Dr. Patricia Hoffman arrived shortly after to assist with evidence collection. She walked through the small room slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "Everything here matches the photos," she said. "The tiles, the wall, even the calendar." Behind one of the boards, they found a small metal box, a second container. Inside were items carefully wrapped in cloth, a small hair clip, a bracelet, and a faded pink ribbon, Emily's belongings. Sullivan picked up the ribbon gently, his eyes stinging. He could almost hear the laughter of the little girl who once wore it. "She never left this room," he said quietly. In a drawer, officers found more Polaroids, not of Emily, but of other children, different faces, different years. It wasn't just one victim, it had happened again and again. That realization hit Sullivan like a wave. For 12 years, Weber had walked freely, smiled at teachers, fixed classrooms, and joked with students, all while hiding this basement beneath his feet. Weber was taken into custody without resistance. His face remained blank, emotionless. When Sullivan finally looked him in the eyes, he saw nothing, no guilt, no fear, just emptiness. As the team sealed off the basement, Sullivan took one last look around. It was quiet now, almost peaceful, but he knew peace didn't belong there. That basement wasn't just a crime scene, it was a grave of innocence, of childhood, of trust. When he stepped outside into the daylight, the sun felt harsh, almost unreal. The truth was finally uncovered, but it came with a cost. Boise would never forget that basement, and neither would Detective Sullivan. The arrest of Thomas Weber shook Boise to its core. The quiet man who had swept the school floors and greeted children every morning was now revealed as a monster who had hidden his crimes in plain sight. The news spread like wildfire. Classrooms fell silent, parents wept, and teachers stared in disbelief. For Detective Mark Sullivan, it didn't feel like victory. It felt heavy, like carrying a truth too dark to ever set down. Weber sat across from him in the small interrogation room, hands cuffed, eyes dull and distant. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the silence. Sullivan watched him carefully, waiting for a sign of regret, a flicker of guilt, a tremble of fear, but there was nothing. When he finally spoke, Weber's voice was calm. "She was just there," he said. "She trusted me." Sullivan felt anger rise in his chest, but he stayed still. "Why, Thomas? Why her?" Weber looked at him blankly. "Because no one ever looked at me that way before." She smiled, and then she stopped. The words sent chills through the room. There was no emotion, no humanity, just emptiness, the kind of evil that couldn't be reasoned with. The interview ended. There was no need for more. The evidence from the basement, the photographs, the DNA tests, all of it told the story in full. Thomas Weber was guilty beyond doubt. When the trial began, the courtroom overflowed with people, reporters, parents, and families of missing children. Emily's mother, Laura Carter, sat in the front row, her hands tightly clasped together. She had aged so much since the day Emily vanished, her eyes dimmed but still burning with love for her daughter. As the evidence was shown, the Polaroids, the items from the basement, the camera, the air grew heavy. Some people looked away, others cried quietly. For the first time, the city saw what had been hidden for 12 years. When Weber's sentence was announced, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, The courtroom remained silent. No cheers, no relief, just a deep, quiet sorrow. Justice had come, but it felt hollow, because no punishment could return what had been lost. After the trial, Sullivan stepped outside into the evening air. The sky was painted in shades of gold and gray, a strange mix of beauty and sadness. He looked at the crowd gathered outside the courthouse. Reporters shouted questions, but he didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. He walked to his car, sat down, and finally allowed himself to breathe. In his pocket was a small object, Emily's pink ribbon, now cleaned and sealed in a tiny evidence bag. He had kept it not as proof, but as a promise that her story would never fade again. That night, Sullivan drove to the edge of the Boise River where Emily's bicycle had been found 12 years ago. The water was calm, the wind soft. He stood there for a long time, remembering her face from the photographs before everything went wrong, the pure smile of a child who never deserved what came after. He whispered softly, It's over now, Emily. You can rest." A single tear rolled down his cheek. He wasn't sure if it was for her, or for every child whose story had never been solved. But deep down he knew this. Even though justice had been served, the weight of the truth would stay with him forever. Because some cases don't really end. They live on in the hearts of those who remember, and in the silent promise that evil, no matter how long it hides, will one day be found. And as the moonlight touched the river, Detective Sullivan turned away, carrying both justice and sorrow in equal measure. Emily Carter had finally come home. The story of Emily Carter is not just about tragedy. It's a reminder of how evil can hide in the most ordinary places, and how justice, no matter how delayed, can still find its way to the truth. Behind every missing person's name is a family still waiting, still hoping, and still fighting for answers. If Emily's story moved you, don't let it end here. Share her story. Speak up for the silenced. Support organizations that protect children and help families of the missing. Because justice begins when awareness spreads, and silence is what allows darkness to grow. Every voice matters. Every story remembered is one step closer to saving another life. Don't look away. Keep watching, keep sharing, and keep believing in the power of truth. This is not just Emily Carter's story. It's a warning, a lesson, and a call for every one of us to protect the innocent and never stop searching for justice.